we've got the management of Bank of India joining us on the show today. We've got Mr. S. Seshadri, who's Executive Director at the bank. Mr. Seshadri, thanks very much for coming in on the show. Now, to begin with, lenders have agreed to the debt recast procedure for Air India. Kingfisher Airlines is also looking at additional aid from bankers. What's the latest on this whole issue? Are banks incrementally lending to airlines despite the challenges that the sector faces?
Now, when we talk of restructuring of a loan, apparently, in fact, you have to revisit what is the requirement of the sector. It's a going business, and some amount of lending, in fact, would definitely continue. It is not the question of whether, in fact, one in a look to the incremental exposure to the sector. It is a question of what are the problems of the sector, and apparently aviation is a stress sector as of now. So, depending upon the requirement of the whole sector, the banks would reposition their lending strategy.
Mr. Seshadri, there have been lots of concerns which have come about for the entire banking industry, particularly on asset quality. But you do have the Ministry of Finance today who said that the Moody's ratings also of Indian banks will not have a long-lasting impact. Do you concur with that, and do you believe that fears perhaps are overdone?
Absolutely right. After all, in any lending activity, and that too, in fact, when there is a growth, you would definitely see some impact of the global scenario affecting, and the higher interest rate and the higher inflation that we have seen would definitely have some amount of stress in any lending activity. After all, NPA is part of the lending process, and it is an issue of cash flows, in fact, which need to be really revisited depending upon the stress in the whole economy. You can't just say, in fact, an account becomes an NPA or there's a stress on account of, and then you write off an industry. I mean, there is a certain amount of overreaction done by the rating agencies. There's no doubt about that.
Right. Now, Mr. Seshadri, if you could just take us through what the current slippage rate from restructured loans is, and also what rate you expect to maintain on that front going forward.
See, you should really take into account a decision taken by the Reserve Bank of India that you start, in fact, accounting every account, no matter what is the size of the loan, and there has been some amount of additional slippage happening there. In fact, globally, nowhere you have the type of stringent 90-day standards which we in the Indian banking segment have seen that. Apparently, small value accounts did have a big impact on the slippages, but what we are seeing is all these small value accounts, in fact, are also responding to the recovery. So you have to basically take into account year on year what is the position, and not on a month on month or a quarter on quarter. I would say, as far as the public sector banks in general is concerned, then Bank of India, we have definitely seen some slippage, but this is largely responding to the recovery effort that we have seen, and quite a few accounts, in fact, have responded to the recovery and upgradation that we have seen.
Mr. Seshadri, just wanted to garner some details with respect to your capital raising plans. How much are you looking to raise? What's the time frame, and via which mode?
Anyway, we have made an assessment. We have shared with you what exactly is the capital requirement, and that is getting, in fact, discussed at the government level. And as we had shared earlier also, for the current year, in fact, our growth and our capital requirements are in place. We are looking at the next 2.5 years, and depending upon how the government responds, in fact, we will continue to have efforts. In any case, for the current fiscal, there may not be much of a capital issue because we are adequately capitalized for the current year's balance sheet growth.
Right. Now, Mr. Seshadri, when you engage with a number of your large clients, what's the sense that you get? Are a number of companies reconsidering their capital expenditure plans, or is there still nervousness and you continue to see a number of them holding back?
Look, the present interest rate definitely is a concern, and the global scenario is something which is not very conducive for a full-scale growth. But what is expected, and what people do expect is, if there is a stabilization in terms of interest rates, and if we see the type of growth, in fact, which we had forecast by the RBI policy, probably people will start relooking at investments, and you will see growth happening sometime during from second quarter of next fiscal. But definitely, signals are more important rather than actual. I mean, you don't see a good growth happening, in fact, in the current quarter or even next quarter. But maybe second, third quarter of next fiscal, you will see some amount of investment coming. The moment interest rates start stabilizing.
And given that the rupee is ruling firm at levels of close to 52 against the US dollar, are you seeing more trouble for corporates and importers? Do you believe that a 2008-like situation is likely to repeat itself?
Over a period of time, there has been some amount of interest differential and inflation differential, which did not find its place in the forex. Rupee depreciation is a factor of the long gap interest differential not getting reflected in the exchange rates. But I'm sure with the growth coming in, rupee would definitely stabilize at the level, and I don't think this is a major concern as far as even the industry is concerned. Rupee has to find its value, and that is the reason why even you don't see much of an intervention by even Reserve Bank of India on this flight.
All right, Mr. Seshadri, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us about the stressed assets picture that most banks are facing, with specific focus, of course, on the aviation sector, which has been in the limelight in recent weeks.